it's so sad to hear my colleagues on the other side of the aisle hate Christmas. This would allow restoration of our forests. Like I said, our forests are overgrown. This would allow a fun way for families to participate in healthy forest management by thinning some of the living trees that are overgrown on our forest lands.
As a Christian, I am offended that my colleague on the other side of the aisle would suggest that I hate Christmas. This bill has nothing to do with inhibiting people from celebrating their religious holidays, including through having a Christmas tree. This amendment and this debate is about the fact that this amendment does not do what the gentlelady from Colorado claims that it does. This bill does not require regional foresters to do anything. I support the Forest Service using its existing authority to permit the harvesting of Christmas trees and trees for firewood, but that's not what this amendment actually does. I'd like to close by observing to my colleague that many of us make happy family memories with trees that are living. We have ways to enjoy trees without cutting them down or burning them.
Mr. Chair, I rise today to offer the amendment on behalf of my friend from Montana, Representative Zinke, which will improve the effectiveness of the Good Neighbor Authority. The Good Neighbor Authority program enables cross-boundary forest management activities with states, tribes, and counties. Collaborative tools like this program are critical to confronting the wildfire crisis, as raging wildfires don't respect man-made borders that separate forests into different jurisdictions. Since 2014, over 490 Good Neighbor Authority projects have been started in 34 states, and more than 273 million board feet of timber is sold yearly through this program. Currently, funds from the sale of timber from Good Neighbor projects can be used to treat insect and disease-infested trees, reduce hazardous fuels, improve forest health, and restore and repair decommissioned Forest Service roads necessary to implement restoration activities. This amendment would expand the permissible users of timber receipts derived from Good Neighbor Authority projects to include the reconstruction, repair, and restoration of roads on non-Forest Service land when such activities are needed to implement forest management projects on federal land. New road construction on federal lands would also be permitted use under this amendment to facilitate authorized restoration projects. However, these new road projects would still be required to comply with the applicable environmental review processes. Further, this amendment would allow timber receipts to be used to construct new roads to replace existing roads that adversely impact forest, rangeland, and watershed health. Access to areas urgently needing treatment remains a huge challenge to improving forest health. Roads are beneficial for forest management, provide the public with access to outdoor recreation opportunities, and enable safer and more effective wildland firefighting.
This amendment would permit the use of Good Neighbor Authority revenues for the construction of new roads. Currently, the Forest Service manages 372,000 miles of roads across 193 million acres that they manage. Due to such a large inventory, the Forest Service often faces financial difficulties in operation and maintenance. Over 58% of the Forest Service's $7.66 billion of deferred maintenance is related to roads. The Forest Service has a colossal network of roads that is already far too big for them to maintain. For this reason, it is hard to support an amendment that would allow the construction of even more roads, that doesn't provide any resources for the future maintenance of those new Forest Service roads. Our Forest Service is spread dangerously thin due to Republican budget cuts. This amendment would make the problem even worse. I urge a no vote and reserve the balance of my time.
The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Colorado. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. It is now in order to consider amendment number 12, printed in Part D of House Report 118-705. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Colorado seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 12, printed in Part D of House Report number 118-705, offered by Ms. Boebert of Colorado.
Pursuant to House Resolution 1486, the gentlewoman from Colorado, Ms. Boebert, and a member opposed will each control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Colorado.
Mr. Chair, I rise to offer my amendment that clarifies existing authorities may be utilized to prevent wildfires in fire regimes 4 and 5, thereby expanding the acres of at-risk forests that would be eligible for streamlined management authorities. This important amendment is critical to fire mitigation efforts across the states of Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Utah, Nevada, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, New York, Maine, West Virginia, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Missouri, Louisiana, Mississippi, Indiana, Ohio, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Virginia, North Carolina, Iowa, Florida, and Texas. The Forest Service estimates 63 million acres are currently at risk of catastrophic wildfire, and each year, nearly 10 million acres in the U.S. catch on fire. Colorado also had the 3 largest recorded wildfires in state history in 2020. Federal agencies have chosen to spend billions on the back end putting out wildfires as opposed to prioritizing active management up front that would reduce the size and number of wildfires. According to the Colorado State Forest Service, more than 24.4 million acres of Colorado forest land impacts Colorado's water supply, where 80% of the state's population relies on those forest watersheds for municipal water supplies. Healthy forests act as a natural water filter and storage system and are critical to maintaining healthy watersheds. In the United States, forests are a source of drinking water for over 180 million people. We can reduce the size and severity of wildfires through active forest management, which will also help protect our watersheds and municipal water supplies. Let's actively manage our forests, be good stewards of the land that we have been blessed with, and pass this important amendment. Mr. Chair, I reserve.
The gentlelady from Colorado reserves. For what purpose does the gentlelady from California seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, I rise to claim the time in opposition to the amendment.
The gentlelady is recognized.
This amendment would further expand a categorical exclusion under the National Environmental Policy Act for projects completed in 2 additional fire management regimes. For context, one of the new regimes, Fire Regime 5, applies to vegetation types that rarely burn, typically due to a lack of moisture or fuel. The fire return interval in those landscapes is more than 200 years. Because of the categorization of these fire regimes, hazardous fuels management is not as high of a priority and does not need a legislative categorical exclusion expansion. This follows the trend that my Republican colleagues have been setting. They have been legislatively expanding categorical exclusions, and Natural Resources Committee Democrats remain opposed. During our debate today, we have shown how meddling in the National Environmental Policy Act process is dangerous and how it sets a precedent that will do more harm than good. Categorical exclusions are most effective when they are developed with expert input by agencies and the Council on Environmental Quality, instead of mandated by Congress. This amendment simply continues to build on the slew of National Environmental Policy Act waivers that the Fix Our Forest Act advances, and it's no surprise that my Republican counterparts have chosen to make this amendment in order. I urge a no vote, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady from California reserves. Gentlelady from Colorado is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I seem to recall just yesterday that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle had no problem meddling in NEPA to get their left-wing projects through CHIPS authorized. The proposal of utilizing existing authorities to prevent wildfires and fire regimes 4 and 5 is crucial as it focuses on proactive management and streamlining of forest health. As someone who prioritizes human flourishing, I see the value in taking measures that can prevent environmental disasters that have devastating impacts on human beings and their property. It's important to remember that we have the power to shape our environment and neutralize dangers through human innovation, powered by cost-effective energy. In the case of wildfire prevention, this could mean better forest management practices, controlled burns to reduce fuel load, and advanced fire detection and suppression technologies. Again, Mr. Chair, I would urge the adoption of my amendment, and I yield.
Gentlelady from Colorado yields. Gentlelady from California is recognized.
I continue to oppose the amendment, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. Question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Colorado. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise to offer my amendment that will require regional foresters to submit a plan through the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Program for the treatment and removal of trees killed by or infested with bark beetles in western states. The bark beetle epidemic has caused significant damage to roughly 100,000 square miles of forest in the western United States alone. There are 600 different species of bark beetles in the United States. Several species, such as the mountain pine beetle attack, and they attack and kill live trees. Most species of bark beetles live in dead, weakened, or dying hosts. Along the West Coast and through the Rocky Mountains, bark beetles have affected tens of millions of acres of forest. While bark beetles are native to U.S. forests and play important ecological roles, they can cause extensive tree mortality and negative economic and social impacts. Spruce beetles have killed millions of trees on more than 1.8 million acres in Colorado since 2000 and provided increased fuels for wildfires. In Colorado, 2021 was one of the worst wildfire seasons our state has ever endured, with 3 largest fires in state history. Bark beetle epidemics and catastrophic wildfires are a significant threat. This can be minimized by thinning overgrown forests and removing hazardous fuels produced by beetle overpopulation. This process is sure to create jobs and increase overall forest health. I urge passage of my amendment that would prioritize collaborative forest landscape restoration program activities that address the bark beetle epidemic, a major contributor to wildfires in Colorado and the West. Mr. Chair, I reserve.
Gentlewoman reserves.
Mr. Chair, I rise to claim the time in opposition to this amendment.
Gentlewoman's recognized for 5 minutes.
This amendment was summarized by Republicans as requiring the regional foresters to develop plans for the treatment and removal of dead or dying trees due to insect disease. However, I want to clarify that this amendment actually doesn't require anything of regional foresters at all. Instead, it requires special consideration for project proposals under the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Program that seek to remove or treat insects or diseases. The purpose of the Landscape Restoration Program is to encourage the collaborative, science-based ecosystem restoration of priority forest landscapes. Insect treatments are already eligible under the program and are executed often as restoration treatments. However, they are also often and should be used in tandem with other collaborative strategies as part of a broader landscape treatment plan. I urge a no vote, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Colorado. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise today to offer my amendment that requires regional foresters to submit a plan on the sale of Christmas trees and firewood on federal land. Under current law, American families can purchase a permit from the Forest Service to cut Christmas trees from their favorite national forests, as well as harvest any firewood, transplants, posts, and poles, and other forest products to improve forest health. We have seen successful Christmas tree and firewood harvesting operations in my home state of Colorado, and this program has served as a locally based solution to help thin our overgrown forests. According to the Forest Service, quote, the permit system helps to thin densely populated stands of small diameter trees. Local forest health experts identify areas that benefit from thinning trees and tend to be the perfect size for Christmas trees. Removing these trees in designated areas helps other trees grow larger and can open areas that provide food for wildlife, end quote. My constituents are struggling right now as they deal with the disastrous effects of the Democrats' destructive economic policies. They unleashed record inflation on Americans that has raised utility bills, drove up energy costs, and made it harder to live for most Americans. My amendment provides an affordable fuel alternative for families across the nation to heat their homes, as well as create lasting holiday memories for families to interact with their local forests. I urge my colleagues to support my common sense amendment to prioritize collaborative forest landscape restoration program activities that allow for the removal of firewood and Christmas trees. Mr. Chair, I reserve.
Gentlewoman reserves. For what purposes does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, I rise to claim the time in opposition to this amendment.
Gentlewoman's recognized.
Similar to Ms. Boebert's last amendment, this amendment was summarized by Republicans as requiring the regional foresters to develop plans, in this case, the plans for the sale of Christmas trees and firewood. Once again, I would like to clarify that this amendment doesn't do that. It does not require anything of regional foresters. Instead, it requires special consideration for project proposals under the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Program that seek to facilitate the sale of Christmas trees and firewood on lands under the jurisdiction of the Secretary of Agriculture or the Secretary of the Interior. The Landscape Restoration Program was not created for the sole purpose of revenue building by removing trees from public lands. The program is meant to do what it says in its program title: promote collaboration among federal land management agencies and the public for the purpose of restoring forest landscapes. Tree harvesting for anything other than the purpose of landscape restoration is not in the spirit of the program. By placing a preference on projects that are related to Christmas tree harvest, this amendment would limit the landscape restoration program by prioritizing a marketable product over landscape restoration. And to be extra clear, the Forest Service already has broad authority to conduct the sale of firewood and of Christmas trees. They don't need it under this restoration program. I urge a no vote, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Questions on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Colorado. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
I'm going to close out my comments on all of these amendments by reiterating what I've been saying. I strongly oppose the underlying bill. It is full of poison pills that harm the environment and will spread our Forest Service even thinner right when we need them most. If Republicans had listened to the administration's concerns about how this bill is poorly drafted, if they hadn't excluded committee Democrats from the drafting process, then maybe we could have a consensus set of solutions in front of us. Instead, we have a bill full of environmental rollbacks, new unfunded programs that will spread our Forest Service thin, and no pay fix for our firefighters. It's a supposed wildfire response bill, but it doesn't have firefighter pay in it. It's a bill that's being offered by Republicans who style themselves as fiscally conservative, and yet as we approach a final vote on this legislation in a matter of minutes, we do not know the costs of the bill, because Republicans, through rushed process, made sure that the Congressional Budget Office did not have a chance to score the bill. Nothing in this amendment addresses any of these extensive and serious concerns. I strongly oppose the bill, as does Ranking Member Grijalva, as does the White House. I reserve the balance of my time.
Question is on passage of the bill. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. The bill is passed without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I request the yeas
For what
and nays.
purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote.